Live on tape from the Dottie and Bill Miller Theater and the Bicknell Family Center for the Arts at Pittsburg State University in Pittsburg, Kansas. You are listening to Gus Radio Theater. Tonight's performances come from our own Caps 13 guys and ghouls in a COM 475 audio production, who have adapted a short series of twisted tales from scholar Aaron Shepard, guaranteed to delight and slightly fright you all on this Halloween. A compilation we like to call Tall Tales of the Dangerously Daffy and Definitely Delusional. We begin in a graveyard on a cold somewhere in a kingdom far, far away.
Once there was a boy who was never frightened, for he had not enough sense to be scared.
That's me.
One day, Hans and his big sister were walking home after dark. The wind howled and the trees creaked and groaned. The road led past a graveyard where the moon lit up rows of tombstones. Hans's sister began to quiver and quake.
Ugh, this place gives me the willies.
The Willies? What are the Willies?
Do I have to tell you everything? The willies are when you get so scared, you shiver and shake.
Well, I've never had anything like that. I wish I could get the Willies, so I know what they're like.
Ugh.
The more Hans thought it over, the more he wondered about the willies, and the more he wished he could have them. One day, he told himself,
If I want the Willies, I'd better go look for them.
So he said goodbye to his family.
What a fool.
I can't believe he's my son.
And he started down the road. Hans walked for many days. Everyone he met, he asked.
Can you give me the Willies?
Many tried.
Ooh! Ah!
But none could.
Oh, man.
At last he came to the king's castle and stood before the king.
Your Majesty, can you give me the Willies?
Of course I can. I am the king.
The king waved his royal scepter.
I command you to have the Willies.
Hans waited, but nothing happened.
I'm sorry, Your Majesty. I still don't have them.
Oh well, at least I know where you can get them. On the other side of my kingdom is a haunted castle. If you spend the night there, you are sure to get the Willies.
Thank you, Your Majesty.
There's just one problem. No one who goes there ever lives through the night. But if you stay alive and break the spell, you'll find the castle treasure.
That's fine with me, as long as I can get the Willies.
It was midnight when Hans reached the castle. The towers cast eerie shadows under the full moon. The drawbridge lowered itself at Hans's feet.
Seems like a friendly place.
As Hans entered the great hall, a fire sprang to life in the huge fireplace. Hans pulled up a chair and settled himself to wait.
Now I'm sure to get the Willies.
The clock in the great hall struck 1. A voice boomed out behind them.
Welcome.
Hans looked around and saw 2 men playing cards. One had a long black cloak, and the other had a furry face.
Would you care to join our game? It's been so long since we've had anyone to play with.
Hans took a seat.
Certainly. It'll pass the time while I'm waiting for those Willies.
I will explain the rules. If my furry friend wins, he will rip you to shreds. If I win, I will drink your blood. If you win, we will let you live.
Sounds fair to me.
The furry man dealt the cards. They played for almost an hour. In the end, the cloaked man won.
I want to drink your blood.
He moved closer to Hans, showing 2 long, pointy fangs.
I think you cheated.
Hans reached for the pointy fangs and broke them off.
Yow!
And the man ran out of the hall. The furry man leaped at Hans, but Hans sprang away from the man, and he flew past, right out of an open window. Hans heard a dull thud. Then He went back and settled himself again before the fire.
I enjoyed the game, but when do I get the Willies?
The clock struck 2. Hans heard a rattling, and into the hall marched a long line of skeletons. The first skeleton snapped its fingers. The second skeleton knocked its knees. The third skeleton drummed its skull, and the fourth skeleton tapped along its ribs in a little tune.
Nice beat.
The other skeletons formed a circle and started to dance. One skeleton stretched a hand towards Hans.
Don't mind if I do.
Hans took hold of 2 bony hands and danced in the circle around the hall.
Hey, this is fun.
The music got faster,
Hold it. I can't dance that fast.
but the skeletons gripped his hands harder and danced even faster.
I said hold it.
Hans gave a yank and the 2 skeletons' arms came right off. The dancing and the music stopped.
I think you lost something.
The skeletons rushed at Hans and started jumping on him. Hans grabbed a chair and swung it this way and that. Bones flew here, there, and everywhere, till the skeletons lay all in pieces on the floor. Hans gathered them up and tossed them out the window as well. Then he settled himself once again before the fire.
I like a little dancing, but I wonder when I'm gonna get those Willies.
The clock struck 3. And from up the chimney came a deep voice.
Look out below!
Something huge came falling down, swerved to miss the fire, and landed before the fireplace. It was a giant body with no arms or legs or head.
Look out below!
2 giant legs and 2 giant arms landed next to it.
Look out below!
A giant head landed by the rest.
I get it. It's a puzzle, and I have to put it together.
Hans heaved the 2 giant legs and stuck them onto the body.
Hey,
It was the giant head talking.
you got the shoes putting out.
Oh, sorry.
He switched the legs. Then he stuck on the arms and the head. And the giant jumped up.
The spell is broken. You're the only one ever to get me together. The others all died of fright long before this. Now follow me to the castle treasure.
Hans followed him to the doorway.
You first.
After you.
The giant led him to the courtyard and pointed to a shovel under a tree.
Dig fell.
You dig there.
The giant dug till he uncovered 3 pots of gold.
Take 'em inside.
You take them inside.
The giant took the pots of gold and set them down in the great hall.
One for a king, one for a poor, and one for you.
Then he fell into pieces again and flew up the chimney. First the head, then the arms and legs, then the giant body.
Some folks just can't keep it together.
Hans went back to his chair before the fire, curled up in it, and sighed.
It's nice to be rich, but when will I ever get those Willies?
And that is how Hans stayed alive, broke the spell, and found the treasure. When the king heard the tale, he let Hans live in the castle, and when Hans grew up, he married the king's daughter. Within a year, they had triplets, 3 fine sons.
Dearest, would you like to name them?
Certainly. Their names will be Willie, Willie, and Willie.
But why all the same?
Because now I have the Willies.
What a frighteningly horrible story.
Nah, dude. That was just bad.
All right, so you got me there. But let's make it up to these fine folks in our audience with an old Norwegian folktale set over 1,000 years ago in what was then Viking Country. A tale about a master maid, or Supergirl, and a young man who still has a lot to learn.
Once there was a man named Leif. Now, Leif was a likable fellow and handsome to boot, but he never wanted to listen to anyone, and he always had to do things his own way. His father said to him,
My son, it is good to make up your own mind, but it is also good to know when others know more than you.
Now, Leif didn't like that either, so he said,
Father, I'm going out into the world where I can do things just as I like.
His father begged Leif not to go, but the more he pleaded, the more Leif was set on it. Finally, his father said,
Your stubbornness is bound to land you in trouble, but at least take this piece of advice. Whatever you do, don't go to work for the troll.
So where do you think Leif went? Right on to the house of the troll. Leif knocked on the door, and the troll himself answered. He was huge and a good deal uglier than anyone you'd actually care to meet.
Pardon me, sir. I'm looking for work.
Are you now?
Said the troll, feeling the boy's arm.
I could use a fellow like you.
The troll led him into the stable and told him,
I'm taking my goats to pasture. Since it's your first day, I won't ask much of you. Just shovel out all this dung.
Well, that's kind of you, sir. You're surely easy to please.
But just one thing. Don't go looking through the rooms of the house, or you won't live to tell about it.
When the troll had gone, Leif said to himself,
Not look through the house? Why, that's just what I want to do.
So Leif went through all the rooms till he came to the kitchen, and there, stirring a big iron pot, was the loveliest maiden he had ever seen.
Good Lord! What are you doing here?
I just got a job with the troll.
Then heaven help you get out of it. Weren't you warned about working here?
I was, but I'm glad I came anyway. Else, I would have never met you.
Well, the girl liked that answer, so they sat down to chat. They talked and talked and talked some more, and before the day was done, he held her hand in his. Then the girl asked,
What did the troll tell you to do today?
Something easy. I've only to clear the dung from the stable.
Easy to say, but if you use the pitchfork the ordinary way, 10 forkfuls will fly in for every one you throw out. Now, here's what you must do. Turn the pitchfork around and shovel with the handle. Then the dung will fly out by itself.
Leif went out to the stable and took up the pitchfork, but he said to himself,
That can't be true, what she told me.
and he shoveled the ordinary way. Within moments, he was up to his neck in dung.
I guess her way wouldn't hurt to try.
So he turned the pitchfork around and shoveled with the handle. In no time at all, the dung was all out, and the stable looked like he had scrubbed it clean. As Leif started back to the house, the troll came with the goats.
Is my stable clean?
Tight and tidy.
And he showed him.
You never figured this out for yourself. Have you been talking to my master maid?
Master maid? Now, what sort of thing might that be, sir?
You'll find out soon enough.
The next morning, the troll was again to go off with his goats. He told Leif,
Today I'll give you another easy job. Just go to the hill to the pasture and fetch my stallion.
Thank you, sir. That won't be any trouble.
But mind you stay out of the rooms of my house, or I'll make an end of you.
When the troll had gone off, Leif went right to the kitchen and sat down again with the girl the troll had called Master Maid.
Didn't the troll threaten you against coming here?
He did, but he'll have to do worse to keep me away from you.
So they talked and talked and talked some more, and before the day was done, he had his arm around her. Then Master Maid asked,
What work did the troll give you today?
Nothing hard. I just have to fetch his stallion from the hillside.
Yes, but how will you manage? It will charge at you, shooting flame from its mouth and nostrils. But here's how to do it. Take that bridle hanging by the door and hold it before you as you get near. Then the stallion will be as tame as a pussycat.
So Leif threw the bridle over his shoulder and went up to the hill to the pasture. But he said to himself,
That horse looks gentle enough.
and he started right over to it. As soon as the stallion saw him, it charged at him, shooting flames just as Master Maid had said. Barely in time, Leif got the bridle off his shoulder and held it before him. The stallion stopped, and as tame as you please, Leif bridled it and rode it back to the stable. On his way out, he met the troll coming home with the goats.
Did you bring home my stallion?
Safe and sound.
And he showed him.
You never figured this out for yourself. Have you been talking to my master maid?
Master Maid? Didn't you mention that yesterday? I'd certainly like to know what it is.
All in good time.
The next morning, before the troll left with the goats, he said,
I want you to go up to the mountain today and collect my tunnel tax from the ferries.
All right, sir. I'm sure I can figure it out.
But just keep out of the rooms of my house, or you won't make it through another day.
As soon as the troll had left, off went Leif to the kitchen and once more sat down with Master Maid.
Aren't you the least bit afraid of the troll?
I am, but not near as much as I'm in love with you.
So they talked and talked and talked some more, and before the day was done, she gave him a nice big kiss. Then Master Maid asked,
What are you to do for the troll today?
Something simple. I'm to go to the mountain and collect the tunnel tax from the ferries.
Simple if you know how. You're lucky I'm here to tell you. Take that club that's leaning against the wall and strike it against the mountain. The rock will open up, and a fairy will ask you how much you want. Be sure to say, just as much as I can carry.
So Leif took the club to the mountain and struck it against the side. The rock split wide open, and out came one of the fairies. Through the crack, Leif could see piles and piles of silver, gold, and gems.
I've
come for the troll's tunnel tax.
How much do you want?
Asked the fairy. Now, Leif figured it wouldn't hurt to ask for extra and then keep a little extra for himself. So he asked,
As much as you can give me.
As soon as he said it, silver, gold, and gems came streaming out of the mountain and piled up around him. In a few moments, he was nearly buried, but the treasure kept coming.
I've changed my mind. Just as much as I can carry.
The pile of treasure flew back into the mountain, and the fairy handed him a sack. As Leif arrived back to the troll's house, he met him and his goats.
Did you collect my tax?
Done and delivered.
He opened the sack, and silver, gold, and gems overflowed onto the ground.
Ah, you never figured this out for yourself. You've been talking with my master maid.
Master Maid? This is the third time you've spoken of it, sir. I wish I could see it for myself.
It won't be long now.
The next morning, the troll brought Leif to Master Maid.
Cut him up and throw him in the stew, and wake me when he's done.
Then the troll lay down on a bench and started snoring. Master Maid took a butcher knife down from the wall.
You wouldn't.
Don't be silly.
She pricked the tip of her little finger and squeezed 3 drops of blood onto a 3-legged stool. Then she put some old rags and shoe soles in the stew pot, along with the kitchen garbage, a couple of dead rats, and some dung for good measure. Then she gathered a wooden comb, a lump of salt, and a flask of water.
Quick, we must flee while we can.
Are you sure we need to rush?
But Master Maid pushed him out the door and over to the stable. They saddled 2 mares and rode away at full gallop. Meanwhile, the troll was stirring from his sleep. Not opening his eyes, he called.
Is he ready?
The first drop of blood answered in Master Maid's voice.
Tough as leather.
So the troll went back to sleep. A little later, the troll woke again and called.
Is he cooked?
The second drop of blood answered.
Still chewy.
So the troll went off to sleep again. At last the troll woke and called,
Isn't he done yet?
to which the third drop of blood said.
Tender and juicy.
Still half asleep, the troll stumbled over to the pot. He scooped up some stew in a wooden ladle and took a big mouthful. It was barely in his mouth when he sprayed it across the room.
That little witch!
Then his eyes grew wide.
She must have run off with the boy.
The troll raced to the stable and saddled his stallion. Then he rode after them like a whirlwind, with the stallion breathing fire as it went. In a little while, Leif looked behind him and saw the troll.
We're done for!
But Master Maid threw the wooden fork over her shoulder and shouted,
Fork of wood, bless my soul. Turn to trees and stop the troll.
The fork changed to a thick forest that blocked the troll's way. The troll said,
I know how to deal with this.
and he called out,
Forest chewer, curse us all. Chew the forest, help the troll.
The forest chewer appeared out of nowhere and devoured the trees, making a path for the troll's horse. Leif looked back and again saw the troll.
We're lost!
But Master Maid tossed a lump of salt behind her.
Lump of salt, bless my soul. Grow to mountain, stop the troll.
The salt turned to a craggy mountain, and the troll again had to stop.
I know how to handle this too. Mountain cruncher, curse us all. Crunch the mountains, help the troll.
The mountain cruncher appeared and bored a tunnel straight and narrow through the mountain. Meanwhile, Leif and Master Maid came to a sea where they found a sailboat tied up. They left the horses, boarded the boat, and sailed for the far shore. They were halfway across when the troll rode up to the water.
I can take care of this as well. Water sucker, curse her soul. Suck the water, help the troll.
The water sucker appeared and started drinking the sea. Soon the boat was scraping bottom.
It's the end of us!
But Master Maid took out her flask.
Drop of water, bless my soul. Fill the sea and stop the troll.
She poured overboard a single drop, and the drop of water filled the sea.
Drink it up, drink it up!
But not another drop could the water sucker drink, and Leif and Master Maid landed safe on the other shore. It wasn't long then till Leif had Master Maid home, and not long again till they had a wedding. But when the minister asked Master Maid if she'd love, honor, and obey, Leif told him,
Never mind that. It's best if I obey her.
and he did, which is why they lived happily ever after.
You have been listening to Gus Radio Theater's production of Tall Tales of the Dangerously Daffy and Definitely Delusional, with adaptations from Aaron Shepard's stage plays The Boy Who Wanted the Willies and Master Maid. This radio production brought to you by Caps 13 Productions at Pittsburg State University, starring Noah Larson, Tessa McClellan, Jason Knowles, Bailey Nolan, Braden Wadino, and Michael Weaver on voice, Vanessa Tapia and Braden Turner on Foley, and Micah Neal up in the sound booth on the audio board. Special thanks to John Eastman, Joe Furman, and Shauna Witherspoon at the Bicknell Family Center for the Arts, and to Dr. Cynthia Allen and Dr. Joey Pogue in the Department of Communication. And remember, folks, when going out tonight, have a fun and safe Halloween.